Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about making large sublimation projects like this large garden flag without having a large printer. So we're going to take prints that are printed on 8.5 by 11 inch paper, join them together, and sublimate on some large garden flags. Now, why did I choose garden flags for this project, first of all? So this process can be extremely tedious, takes a lot of trial and error. Your first few attempts probably are not going to be anywhere close to working, and it may take you several tries to even get close to where you're happy with your seams on a project like this. Garden flags are a very inexpensive way to test this process and kind of start getting used to joining your sublimation prints together and minimizing the seams between your prints. So I personally chose garden flags for this project. I would definitely 100% not start with the expensive sublimation blank and think you're going to join those sublimation prints and it's going to look amazing, because it's probably not. I would start with something very inexpensive. These garden flags are one example, but you can probably find other large sublimation blank examples that are inexpensive. Even a roll of polyester fabric, if you just wanted to kind of test joining a couple prints together. So we are going to cover how to print out a large sublimation print, even if you have a small printer, how to join those prints together, then how to press something that is larger than your press, and then finally we're going to take a look at some of the results I got, good and bad. So I'm going to just say, first of all, I have been asked for a long time for a video like this. I have been perfecting this process for probably over a year, and I still am hit or miss with my seams. Sometimes they look really, really good. Other times I can see it. I am going to point them out in this video. I will say that a lot of these, like if they were hanging in my yard, you probably would not see the seam across here, right? But if I was to point out that there was a seam there, of course you can see it. So I will just say right there, if I run my finger along the seam, point out exactly where it is, you can probably tell where it is with an up close shot like that. However, with a garden flag hanging in your yard, may or may not be able to tell. For me, the most frustrating part of these is where the heat press overlaps more than where the seams overlap. I'll just say that. I can see that seam more than I can see where the prints meet. So maybe good or bad. So I do have two designs that I'm going to give you for free. One is the Trick or Treat, and then the other is the Happy Fall Y'all. Both of these can be used for a garden flag or any other project that you have, and I'll have them for free in the description below this video. Now, the lighter the design, so the Happy Fall Y'all, is easier to me. I did want to kind of show both in this video so you could see a darker design. And I feel like the darker you get, the harder it is. So if I was to have, I purposefully did not choose a design that had a black background. That's going to be the hardest design. So if you're starting out with this, I would choose something light. This light pink is a good example, or any other kind of light background that you can find. If you can find something that you want to use that has a white background, or maybe you would just be, you know, like the background would be white, you would be just joining some words into a large design, that would probably be even easier than what I'm showing here. I did want you to be able to kind of see the results I was getting, so I did an all over full bleed design with a colored background on purpose. So now that we've covered all that, and you know that I'm not perfect, I'm going to show you kind of the methods that I came up with and what works best for me. First, we're going to take a look at the supplies we're going to use, however, so let's take a look at those supplies. So I'm going to use garden flags as my example project. Now this process takes some trial and error, takes some practice, and garden flags are very inexpensive. So it is a great way to practice this. Lint roller, a cutting mat, a ruler, a rotary blade, perhaps some scissors. Now you don't have to use the rotary blade and ruler cutting board combo. You could use a paper trimmer if you're more comfortable. I do like a scraper, and then your sublimation prints. Now I'm going to show you how to print your sublimation prints, in this case for this size flag, in 4 pieces, and we're going to do that in just a minute. And then you'll need some heat resistant tape. You'll need some butcher paper, a heat source. I'm going to use my large easy press mat and some cardboard as well. And then to help with alignment, I am going to use a light box. I do think that helps a little bit to align these prints and make sure you get everything perfect. So now let's take a look at printing these on our Sublimation printer with Sublimation ink. So I find the easiest way to do this is in Adobe Acrobat Reader. The Reader is free. The Pro version of Adobe Acrobat is a fee, but you can get the Reader for free. I will link to the website I'm showing in the description below this video. Just click download PDF Reader and follow the instructions. Then open the PDF file in the Acrobat Reader that you just installed on your computer. Now, if your file is not a PDF, let's say it's a PNG file that you want to print and use this same tutorial for, there are various websites that convert PNG files to PDF files, and I would do that first. There's also a great tutorial from Jennifer Maker on using Microsoft Word with a PNG document to do kind of this same thing and divide things into sections. I find the Adobe method a bit easier, but I'll link to her tutorial in the description below this video, and you can head there and see how she does it in Word if you're more comfortable. So I'm going to go to File, then Print. Now you can choose your printer. You can literally do this method with any printer. Where it says page size and handling, you want to pick poster. So you may see this size here. Click over to poster and you'll see this image change. So you can see it changed from 1 sheet to 4 sheets. And where these dashed lines are, that's where your page will be divided. This PDF is already sized for my flags, so I can leave the tile scale at 100%. And this one has a very, very slight overlap, and that is a default. So that's basically probably how much you would cut off as you run it across. So I'm going to leave that. You may find that you want to remove it, and you can just change it by clicking in the box and removing that. But I am going to leave it at the default for now. And then after this, you would just do the same thing you always do with your printer. So you would pick the same settings as always. So for me, I'm going to print on my Epson EcoTank that I've converted for sublimation. I am going to use a matte paper setting and best quality, and I am going to flip it horizontally. I'm going to go ahead and click print, and then we'll take a look at cutting and piecing these pieces together. I did also want to point out that most printers that print 8.5 by 11 will print an 8.5 by 14 inch size paper. Sometimes that will work better with some designs. To change to that, you would go to your paper size and change it to 8.5 by 14, and then it will lay it out, in this case, on 3 pages of 8.5 by 14. Depending on the size of your design, the type of design you have, this could be a better option for you. So look at those type of options as well. What size paper will your printer print? What size do you have? And just kind of scroll through those and see which layout you like best. It may be which makes the fewest seams, or it may be which seams are in the best location. So now we do need to trim this paper some. After much trial and error, this is the method that works best for me. So lay out your paper so you get an idea of how it's going to fit together. So this is the way this one's going to fit together. Then I'm going to pick these two to start, and I'm going to do this seam first. To do that, I'm going to trim one edge exactly to where the print starts. So I like to use a cutting mat, a ruler, and a rotary blade. Lining it up exactly with the printed edge. Run your rotary blade right down that ruler. And then you want to look at it. Did you get all the white from this edge? A lot of times I like to lay it next to a colorful sheet of paper so I can see if there's any white. Now the letters are white in this design, so I'm looking for white on the purple areas, and I don't see any, so I'm good to go. If there was any, I would go back, line it up, cut again. Now for the page that butts up next to that, I am going to leave this white strip. If the white strip is quite a bit, I might trim it a little bit. This one is not, so I'm going to leave it. For these next steps, I like to use a light box. So the one with the white edge, we're going to flip that over. Take a long piece of heat-resistant tape. You want it about as long as your printed area. We're going to put it on this edge that we're going to join. And the tape only needs to cover like halfway. So you want half of the tape sticking off the edge, half on the paper. Then we're gonna turn the light box on, make sure it's all the way up, flip this over, and now we're gonna line these two up. So we wanna line up this with the colored area. This little white strip will be an overlap. I find that having that strip of white helps me a little bit to line everything up. So I'm gonna line everything up, and as you're lining it up, you can just tack it down to that tape. I'm gonna tack it down to the tape all the way, and then I look at it. Do I see any white along this seam? If I do, I would pull it up from the tape, readjust, tack it back down, look again. So this takes a lot of patience to line this up. You can also look at it on the light box and see if there's white areas showing through, and I do have a slight white area. So I'm gonna readjust again, pulling that over a little more. I just keep repeating that process until I'm happy with the look of this seam. You also wanna make sure everything looks okay, right? So I'm lining up along this O. Does this O look okay? Do the lines on this E look okay? The line on this I that I'm starting at the bottom here, does it look okay? Make sure all of that looks fine. And once you're happy with the look, we're going to flip this over and burnish this tape down really, really well. Get into that edge really well. And you can even add a piece of tape like down here at the bottom. Now this edge is ready. Now we want to repeat for the top 2 sheets of paper, then we're going to join those sheets together. So now that the top and the bottom are together, we're going to repeat and add these together into a set. So again, we'll line it up on the first one, trim off the excess, and then look at that. Does it look fine? Are there any white areas? And I do see a little bit of white. So I'm gonna reline that up and just try to shave off those areas I saw. And it is very, very critical. So it is just like fine little wisps. And I'll just kind of repeat that. You can see I got a couple of little wispy pieces there. So this part is looking better. So I still have a little right there. You can't get it with a rotary blade. The other option is to take your scissors and ever so slightly like trim the very, very edge sliver of your paper. And that's been successful for me as well. So that's all I needed to trim. Like, you probably can't even see that. It is like a hair. So I will continue doing this and get this just perfect. And then this side, you don't have to trim it. However, you see how sometimes it gets off just a little bit? I don't know if it's my printer or this paper I'm using, but for me, making it even, so even though it's just like that white overhang, making it even and straight has been helpful. So that is straighter for me. So making the overhang a little bit straighter at this point has been helpful. This time, of course, this will be longer. So we want a longer piece of heat-resistant tape and put it across the 2 pieces. Again, about half of the tape hanging off so you can join the pieces. So we just want to press that down. And we have about half that tape hanging off. Now, light box on. Flip that over, and then start lining this up the same way we did before. Once again, as you're lining it up, just sort of tack it into place. Step back, look at it, readjust, and just keep trying until you get something you're happy with. When you have white areas in the middle of the design, you can also trim your heat tape into little pieces and use it to hold the print together. That is often helpful. And I could even do that here on the O and the E, kind of pull everything together. For now, I'm going to finish burnishing the tape down, and then we can add this to our flag with some heat tape and press. You do want to go ahead and preheat your garden flags really well. So I'm going to use 375 degrees for 50 seconds, and I'm preheating these garden flags several times and lint rolling them. I find that these garden flags are made out of like a really inexpensive material. It holds moisture, it shrinks a lot. So we want to go ahead and get it shrunk as much as possible to make these garden flags as perfect as they can get. Then just bring your garden flag over and line it up on the print. Now it was slightly oversized, but the flag, I really do feel like they shrink, or they're not exactly the size that they're intended to be in the beginning. There are a very cheap sublimation flag from Amazon. Now, if your print was the exact size, you would want to make sure to line it up on the edges. Mine is oversized, obviously, so I'm just going to kind of center it up. And then we want to tape the flag itself down well, and make sure to tape across the seams here, because those are the critical points, right? We don't want it to fall apart on the seams, so I'm going to be sure to put a piece of tape on the seams. Now we're going to add this to our heat press. So a couple things I recommend here. A piece of very sturdy cardboard or several pieces to keep everything flat. Remember that this is probably larger than your heat press, so you want to make sure that nothing moves. Then to protect my cardboard, I actually put a heat resistant mat on top of my cardboard. I just used the large Cricut Easy Press mat. If you have something like that that is larger than the piece you're sublimating, that would be best. Then we're going to put picture paper over that to protect it from any ink. Add the flag sublimation print side up and put picture paper over the top of that. And then I'm going to have to press this in 2 sections. So I do recommend using as large of a heat press as you have. You can press this in sections, but the larger the heat press, the better. I'm going to press it once for the full time, 375 degrees, 50 seconds. And then I'm going to move it as little as possible. And that's why we have the cardboard. So moving the cardboard is best. That way we don't disturb anything happening with the print. So I went ahead and turned my cardboard, and then I did have to move my mat just slightly to get it in the press a little bit more, and then go ahead and press again for the full time, 375 degrees, 50 seconds. And then we can remove that from our press and we can take a look at our results. Okay, let's take a look at some results. So I'm going to point out the lines to you so you can see the full flag here. The seam for this one is running down through here, right through here. I can barely see it, but should be running this direction. The seam for this is actually running through here. You can barely notice it, but I can make it out. This line that you see is actually from my auto press. So pressing things twice often leaves a very faded line where the press meets, especially on something like these garden flags. I don't know of a good way to get rid of that line for overlapping pressing. It was less noticeable the lighter my design was. So let me take this one out from underneath here. This is, of course, a lighter design. The press mark, you can't hardly see it because of the lighter design. The lines on this one, I messed up a little bit right here. So it's down through here. This side I can barely make out. I think it's right through here. And then here, I can just make it out in the middle right here, but it should be right across in this area. Again, no press mark. Now let's take a look at, I made many, many, many flags. I'm just going to show you a few of them, like things to look out for. Here's another one of that same design. This one did get the press mark, so you can kind of see it through here, especially through the fall here. So it does happen on this one occasionally, not all the time, but I did find that the lighter one, it happened less often. And then this one, I was experimenting with different ways, and you can see some of the ways worked here. Some did not, but I did want to show you this press mark. And then speaking of press marks, when you're pressing on the auto press especially, or any press really, be sure you get your flag completely in there. So the auto press is curved on those edges, and I had a tough time, you know, because I was doing 2 presses, locating it sometimes for some of my experiments, and I got this on a few of the flags I did. So yeah, be careful that you get the entire thing in the press. Again, you can see the press mark on this one. The seams on this one actually look really, really good, except that you can see on this one, I didn't get everything lined up exactly, so the R looks off. So you can see the line where the R is because the top and the bottom weren't exactly lined up. So that's something to watch out for. And then I would say on most of my darker ones, I could see this press line. So you can see it again in this one. Overall, this one doesn't look horrible, but you can see some of the lines. And then I'm going to show you this one because this was my first one as I was playing around. So I did get way better. You can definitely see the lines here. And then if you see all of this, where I just completely messed this one up, it was because I moved the flag. So I talked about when I was pressing to move the cardboard and the entire thing. I moved the flag on that protective paper, and then on my second press, the protective paper, the ink that was on there resublimated on all my little white areas. So I just made a complete mess of this one. So that is why I say don't move the flag, don't move the protective paper, just move the cardboard, swing it around, move it, and if you have to move it, move the entire thing to do your second press. Okay, now that you've seen I can get pretty good seams, but it's just not quite perfection every single time. Let's talk about that. So in my opinion, if you need to make, let's say, these huge garden flags to sell and you need to make multiples of them a day, I would invest in a large format sublimation printer, hands down. It's going to be way easier, way less trouble, and you're going to have way less headache. I can get a good seam on one flag, and then the next flag I can see where I've missed an area with this process and it doesn't look good. It's just very tedious, very time consuming. You have to really, really concentrate, and then still sometimes you get it wrong. Now, if I just had a small printer already, didn't want to invest in a larger one, and I literally needed to make 2 garden flags for the holidays for my own yard, I would just use the process I've shown in this video. Like I said, this garden flag, like up close I can see the seam. If it was hanging in my yard, no one would ever know the difference, right? So I would just use this process if that was the case. So wherever you fall on that spectrum. So maybe you need a large format sublimation printer because you're going to be doing large prints like this all the time. That's what I would recommend. You don't really need a large format sublimation printer if you just need to make a few of these. And especially if they're just for you, I really do think you could probably perfect this for gifts for family and friends if you just needed a few of them. I think it would be very frustrating to do this day in and day out. Like I cut out a lot of the video where I was lining things up, making sure it looked okay, removing it, relining it up, saw a little white spot, removed it, cut a little bit more off. Like it was just an extremely long process. However, can you get it to work? Yes, you can. Would you want to all the time? Maybe not. So it's just going to depend on the type of crafter you are, whether this process will work for you or not. And I am absolutely positive. So I mentioned Jennifer Maker's video earlier on in this video because she uses Microsoft Word for her process. I wanted to mention that because there are a bunch of different ways to get your print into different sections. I also want to mention in here because there are a bunch of different videos on YouTube on joining your sublimation prints, and they all kind of use different techniques. I do also feel like this technique is kind of dependent on you. Would my technique work for you? It might. You might be super frustrated with the way I do it and not like it at all, and someone else's technique might work for you. That's okay too. Like, it is absolutely fine. So definitely check out a few more videos on YouTube, how people piece together sublimation prints, and you might find a few of the tips that I shared are beneficial, a few tips from another video, combine a few different videos and find a process that works for you. That's okay as well. I do feel like this is one of those where it's just gonna kind of be a process that's dependent on your style of crafting, which way will work for you. But I hope that helps you learn my method for piecing together small sublimation prints to make a large project. And I hope you'll give it a try for yourself. Remember, do not start with expensive sublimation blanks because you're probably going to be disappointed. Start with something a little less expensive and a light color if possible. That would be my 2 top tips to learn the entire process and get comfortable with it. But if you have any questions about anything I covered, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.